Welcome to today's ePay Monthly Labor Forecast Dashboard webinar. My name is Christian Contreras, and we're going to get through today about an hour and a half or so, going through the actual process of running the labor dashboard for those that have never seen it before. More important, for those that have, this will be a good kind of tutorial or kind of refresher for everybody. We are going to start today a process of kind of going through and learning the basics of Hubble, so we'll start there. But more importantly, we're going to go through and kind of give you the whole importance and kind of the whole rundown of how to run the monthly labor forecast dashboards and kind of review some of the data that you're going to see when you do it on your own. Now, as we do with all of our sessions, we do have everyone currently muted, and we have a pretty good size gathering here today. So over on the right-hand side of your screen, you should have a little control panel. On that control panel, there is an area that says questions. If throughout today's session you have a question or concern, feel free to go in there and type in a question. If the question is actually a little too long to type, you'll make a note there to be unmuted, and I'll be happy to unmute you only and allow you to answer that question, and we can proceed from there. Now, we are going to record this webinar. So this webinar I'll have posted up to Gateway as well as on YouTube following our session today. That way you can always refer back to it for your future reference. Now, our Hubble screen here, it's identical to what you see right here on your screens right now is our Hubble window. And our Hubble window there is kind of the starting process of our different variety of dashboards that we have. So let me go ahead and log in and get started, and we'll go through this process of logging in as well, and I'll get started here momentarily. So I'm going to come back and review some of these pieces with you, but I want to go straight to the monthly labor forecast and point out one important section that everyone on this call would benefit from. Here in the middle section of the screen, you have a little section called Instructions. So kind of we go through today's process, just keep in mind this dashboard is actually going to provide you a forecast by job for the current calendar month. Now, this little instructions section is going to give you a little overview of what this monthly labor dashboard is intended to be, and we're going to go through that here momentarily. But the very bottom, if I scroll down to the bottom of this panel, we have two links. First link here is our first bullet there is the monthly labor forecast guide, and the second link or the bullet there is the Hubble navigation guide. For the benefit of everyone on today's call, we're actually going to start with the Hubble navigation guide so we can give everyone a quick refresher or tutorial on how to navigate through Hubble. Once we're done there, we'll go through the monthly labor forecast guide, which will be focused strictly on the monthly labor forecast. During today's call, I may reference the ePay compliance dashboard, which is the other dashboard that we are currently using. However, I won't be actually going through that specific dashboard on this call. Now, when you click on one of those two links, you're going to get the documentation that goes behind both pieces. So this one's an Hubble navigation guide. And I'm going to zoom in just a tad for everybody. And this navigation guide actually covers a couple of the key areas that you would want to be able to be very proficient on using and be able to do whenever you're actually in the monthly labor forecast dashboard. So we're going to start off our discussion today with a few terms, some basic definitions of words that we're going to be using quite a bit today and kind of when you're using Hubble. We're going to show you how to log into Hubble. We're going to go through and show you how to add a shared workspace. And the workspace being a workspace that's shared to you, and basically how do you open that up. But open workspaces, we're going to go and show you how to navigate from page to page. We're going to go through a section called Drill Down from List, allows you to drill down into the data to, drill down into more granular levels of your data. And then we're going to talk about exporting lists to Excel, essentially the process of taking your data and putting it into an Excel format. So we're going to take the next 15, 20 minutes tops to go through these different topics, and then we'll get back on to the monthly labor forecast piece. So a couple of terms that we're going to talk about today. First one is the workspace. So the workspace is nothing more than the dashboard that we've been referring to today, and the workspaces can have one or more pages. So a workspace example is this on the screen now. This is your workspace. And I'll tell you right now, at the very bottom of the page, bottom right-hand side of the page down here, you do have the ability to see page numbers. I'm circling down here at the bottom right. So down there you have page numbers. Those page numbers, actually, all 6 pages of this workspace all together make up that workspace. So that's the first term, is workspace. And then obviously the next page is going to, next term is going to be pages. And pages, like I mentioned, is a workspace can be a 1 page long, it can be as many pages as needed. So a page is essentially a workspace. Now each page is consisting of, or made up of, several different panels, up to 8 panels of information. Now each panel is essentially every little box you see on the screen here. So looking on the screen here, you'll see that there are indeed 7 panels on the first page of this workspace. So each of these is a panel. And you will see as each panel will provide you different bits of information. So as you go through and actually start using the monthly labor forecast, you will see each panel will provide you different pieces of the puzzle. Now the next 3, charts, metrics, and lists, are essentially different starting points for data, I guess you can call them. A chart, for example, is a picture with multiple numbers from a list. A metric is essentially a picture with 1 number from a list. But in either case, you can click on either one of these pictures or charts or metrics to open up the data or that list that we're referring to. So for example, if I go back over here, what that's saying is in any of these panels, you see all these little pictures, I can actually go in there and double click on any one of those to open up a list view. And the list view essentially is the data behind these initial figures. So for example, I have a variance, grade variance cylinder that is showing 180,000 up in the top left-hand corner here. If I double-click on that, that's going to get me to the list view where I can actually see the data behind it, what exactly makes up that variance of 180,000. So that is the couple next terms that are on that list. List is your data, like I mentioned. We'll talk about that quite a bit. A text or image is basically information only. A good example of a text or image is this instructions page here in the middle of the screen. It's just an image with some wording on it. You can't do anything with it really other than read it and scroll down into it. And the last one is a refresh indicator. Now the refresh indicators are going to be small circles that have 2 arrows that make up this circle. There's going to be spinning. And those, when you ever see those spinning, all it's saying is currently trying to reload the data as it relates to that particular panel. So let me give you an example here. If I went to another page in this document, that one flashed too quick. Let me go back to the original one. Now I go back to the overview page. You see every panel has a little circle turning right now in the bottom right-hand corner of it. What the system is doing is going out there and looking to make sure it's got the most accurate information and reloading that particular data or that panel for you. That's a refresh indicator, so if you see those throughout, don't panic. That's just something that's perfectly normal. Now, real quick, to log into Hubble, everyone on this phone call should already have a login to the Hubble system. If you should not have a login, a couple of things that you can do. First off is you can actually go through the help desk, get that requested, that you need access to that. But what would actually help a little faster is we have some forms on the intranet that you can go on and ask for a Hubble access, and that actually is going to be a requirement. So if you go to the help desk and put that note that you need Hubble access, we're still going to have to ask you to fill out that form. And once you fill out that form, you'll be your username will be assigned to you, and that's going to be your email address, and a temporary password will be assigned to you. Typically, the temporary password, and if you think you have access but you never tried it before, you can always enter your email address, full email address for ISS, email address, and then go through there and put in your password of simply Hubble1. That's capital H-U-B-B-L-E and the number 1. And try that as your default password. If for some reason that doesn't work, then obviously we'll have to reset your password for you. Now it's hard to notice here, but on the actual screenshot here of the Hubble login, right to the left of the number 4 arrow, there is a link that's called Forgot Password. So if you're already in the system, you can always go back and click on Forgot Password. It'll ask you for your username, which is your email address, and your surname, and your surname doesn't be more than your last name. Enter those bits of information, hit submit, and the system will generate a new password and email that to you if you're already an active or set up user in the system. So to get this started, all we're going to do is go into hubble.us.issworld.com. It's going to be the web address we'll use, and I'll recommend that you just go ahead and first time you do go there, that you go ahead and bookmark or save as favorites that site. That way you don't have to type it in every moment you try to access Hubble. Enter your username, like I said, is your ISS email address, your password that was assigned to you, and click sign in. Now, in order to get started, you will have to have a workspace shared with you. And what it means by that is occasionally whenever we have if you're a new user, you'll get this at the beginning of the process, or if at any point during the course of using Hubble we actually do an update or make any changes to the views, we will send out a updated workspace. And the way it works is you'll get an email first to the email address, obviously it's your user ID. That email address will get an email sent to it, and it'll say that, for example, it'll say Christian Contreras has shared a new workspace with you, or has shared blank workspace with you. Or it may say Anthony Lackey has shared a workspace with you, etc. In either case, whenever you see this email, it's your kind of indication to go over to log in Hubble, to actually log in there and go to the notification section, denoted here by the yellow arrow. When you go to the notification section from your main Hub screen, you have the ability now to see all the notifications that have been sent to you. Now, for example, if I go back to my screen and go back to my Hubble, once I log in, I go straight to this particular window. In the middle section here, you have a notifications area that I can actually go through, and when I click on it, I have the ability to actually see all the workspaces that have been shared with me, or all the notifications that I have. In this case, you'll see here it says Anthony Lackey has shared a workspace. It's called Monthly Labor Forecast version 2 with me, and gives them the date and time. At this point, I would just go in, click on the actual blue link that's there provided for you, and it will open up that workspace with you. And you're there, you're done, you're ready to rock and roll with the monthly labor forecast. Now, if for some reason I click on it and it gives me this message, it says a copy of this workspace is already open. Would you like to use an existing or create a new one? Well, that basically means is that that workspace that I just opened has already been opened before. Now, it doesn't hurt you to open it again. However, you basically is telling you that you already have something open with that name going on in the system. If you choose to use the existing workspace, it will just take you straight to the one that's already open. Otherwise, you can create a new workspace, and it'll just open a secondary view for you, another dashboard view for you. Nothing wrong with that. Just have two named the same. And that's notifications. Notifications always allows you, like I said, to be able to go in and see your notifications and open the workspace that are shared with you. Now, if you ever forget, if you ever go in, close the workspace, or you go in and navigate to a point where you've dug yourself in a hole, per se, and I'm not saying that you'll do that, but you'll get to a point where you just can't remember how to backtrack a few screens or views, you can always come back to notifications here and click on that same link again, and it'll give you the opportunity to create a new workspace or existing workspace. So you have the ability now to kind of use this as a starting point and get a fresh new workspace whenever you need. Now, the second part of this is you have something called, from the main hub here, or on the left-hand column, I guess you should say, of the Hubble view, you have an option there to do workspaces. Now, workspaces can be accessed here on the left-hand side of the screen, or it can be accessed from the main hub window right in the middle of the screen here called Open Workspaces. In either cases, the way the system works is whenever you go and open a workspace, the system's always going to try to recall where you last left off. So you're working on Hubble, you get a urgent call from a customer site that you have to go out and visit. You leave your computer on and you forget that Hubble's still running. Well, Hubble's going to knock you out after about 10 minutes of inactivity, but the open workspace is still going to be there. It's just going to remember where exactly you left off. So you can always go back to either the open workspaces in the middle of the screen or on the left-hand bar, which is a little easier, and see the open workspaces that you have there waiting for you. So if I wanted to go to some workspaces called Monthly Labor Forecast, it's already open for me. I just click on it. The system will load where exactly I last left off. So there it is, and you're back in business. So open workspaces will save you some time, bottom line, just so you have the ability now to go back and pick up where you last left off. And that was working open workspaces right there. All right, so moving page to page. There are two ways of moving page to page. The first option is the easiest way, and that is to use the table of contents. Table of contents allows you to go to any page you want after you select it. The other option is using the page left right arrows, which are located at the very bottom right hand corner of your Hubble screen. Unfortunately, with those, or your workspace, bottom right hand side of your workspace. The unfortunate part about that is if you had 6 pages to navigate through, and you wanted to go over to page 5, you'd have to click on that arrow 4 times to get to page 5. So you have to click once to go to page 2 to update. Then after that's done, go to page 3, click it again, to page 4, and to page 5. Now, that's not a problem, but it takes a lot longer to navigate that route. So once again, going back to the dashboard here, up at the top left-hand corner, or close to the top left-hand corner, under the title, you see Monthly Labor Forecast at the top. Right underneath that, you have a Table of Contents icon, to which you can hit the drop-down and pick the page you want to go to, or go down to the page at the very bottom right-hand corner of the page, click on the Pages, and go arrow by arrow, 1 page at a time, to get where you want to go. So, Table of Contents is a way to navigate in any of these different dashboards that we provide you. All right, the drill down list. Now, the drill down list, what they actually do for you, and I'm going to actually demo this in a little better scenario here a little bit. Screenshots are okay. However, the screenshots don't really convey the big overall picture. Essentially, what we have the ability of doing is when you go to any of the different data views, typically the hierarchy works that you first start at the company level and you work your way down. So what I could actually do here, and I'll demo this as we go to the live demo of the monthly labor forecast here momentarily, you could actually go to the first arrow, the first yellow arrow up there at the top left, number 1, right-click on any of the different companies that you have access to seeing, and then actually drill down into the data by district, project, job, or see your daily hours by company. So you have some availability to drill down into different granular levels. Arrow 2 is going to show you an example there that we actually chose districts, went down to our different districts, and then we can right-click again and actually drill down into our jobs. So one thing that we'll keep in mind is as you go in deeper and deeper down and down into this granular level of lower levels of granularity, you can actually see, as number 4 shows there, is a kind of a trail of where you've been. And let me zoom out just a tad so you can see it all. That trail is referred to as breadcrumbs. It allows you to kind of leave a path to get back to where you started. So I'll show you this more in more detail here momentarily when we actually go in and do our live demo. I'll also show you this export functionality where you can actually go into Excel, click anywhere on the list. This will activate arrow number 2 where you actually see 3 dots and have the ability to hit a drop-down arrow, a drop-down menu, and that list view menu is going to actually provide you an option to save to Excel. Now, saving to Excel allows you there to go in and essentially take your data and move it over into an Excel format. Alrighty. So let's go on to the next one, and I'm going to demo this one here momentarily as well. So this is actually the last page of our quick introduction, refresher, I guess, or introductory for some of you into the Hubble navigation piece. Now, in the instruction section, you also have the other link. It's called Monthly Labor Forecast Guide, And to both of these, I'll suggest that you actually go in there, click on them, and when you actually click on either one of these links, it actually will open up there in your internet browser. And then from there, you can actually go to the top right-hand corner and either print it out, or you have the ability now just to hit the down arrow and download it to your computer. That way you have it for your future reference. I would say don't kill a tree unless you really want to, or really need to. Let me zoom in here to the user guide. And this user guide now is actually going to give you a couple key points to keep in mind, and we're going to go through all these in our discussions here. So we're going to first start with what's the expected usage and intended purpose of the monthly labor forecast. I'm going to go through the overview and features of the monthly labor forecast. We're going to talk about the different data sources of where it's getting the data, and it's obviously getting data from actuals, averages, from a budget that you've actually entered or have had entered or completed that went into JDE. And we're going to talk about pay types and spend categories. And then I'm going to show you we're going to go through just a quick review again of the drill down list. We're going to go in there and sum it up by showing you why we want to separate all of our labor analysis by the different billing types. And then we're going to show you a cool little feature of this monthly labor forecast in which you have a production rate calculator available for you. Now, once we're done with all these covering these little points, I'll go through and actually show you the data that's available for you in the monthly labor forecast. So the intended purpose. So everyone on this phone call is asked to actually spend anywhere from 5 minutes, typically 5 to 10 minutes. So either have larger locations or larger areas of responsibility. You may want to take up to 20 minutes a day. And notice this is a daily number. And we ask that all levels of operations manager, all the way from the managing director down to the general manager, director of ops, and district managers, each do this. It is important that we go in there and actually review our information daily. And the intended purpose of doing that is because we want to discover and fix labor issues as early as possible. And you also want to ensure that your labor budgets are current. Now, if you're doing this, you're able to stay ahead of the budget and hopefully at the end of the month come up ahead of that magic number. Now, as we go through this as well, there is a process to update the budgets that are in the system. Now, if you ever go in here and notice that any of your labor budgets are incorrect, there is a monthly labor forecast Excel export that we're calling, that's what we're actually calling it, that will help you record those labor budget changes. Now, keep in mind, you do not have access in JDE to do this yourselves. You would need someone, part of the operations support group or the group here at corporate to actually take care of that for you. So in order to do that, we ask you to use this Excel export, which I will cover here momentarily. And the general process is it would be for the general manager to basically approve the changes. So if a district manager notices that their budgets are not quite right and we have to adjust the labor, the GM will approve those changes. The GM will then send those approved budget changes to the operational support group. And the operational support group will actually go in there and update the budget information in JD Edwards. Now, we ask that it's a 24-hour turnaround time because obviously there's always a lot of requests coming to the queue. But nevertheless, once those requests are complete, the changes will be reflected immediately into the monthly labor forecast. So a couple of different overviews and kind of general features that are available for this workspace is, first off, the workspace is going to provide you a real-time labor forecast. So you can actually go there at any point and know how many hours are remaining for you in the month, where you at, are you upside down on your labor budget now, what is going on. And this is based on the work and the forecast for all hourly workers, and it's for the current calendar month only. And kind of saying that, keep in mind that we don't care what happened last month. Last month is too late to turn back around and go back and fix. We're in September now, and we haven't started October yet, so we still really don't have any reason to go up there and worry about October just yet. We're in the current month of September, and we're focused on that right now. Now, the workspace is going to feature two different distinct areas. It's going to show you an area where fixed fee and square foot jobs are always going to be kept, and they're going to be kept separate from the other jobs such as cost plus, attendance, service day, progress, loaded rate, etc., those different types of jobs. And then one cool feature of this workspace is going to actually provide you a page where you can see the production rate for every one of your janitorial jobs. And I'll show you that here momentarily as well. So real quick on the different drill down lists, as I mentioned earlier, that you have the ability to go through and drill down into your data from a variety of different levels. So essentially what that basically means is that you can actually go in from a company level, drill down to your projects, from your projects you're down to your districts, from your districts down to your jobs, and obviously down to your daily hours for that job. If you're at a project or job level, you can actually go into your timesheet as well. You can go and see your manual timesheet entries. You can actually go in there and see them with or without totals. But more importantly, you can go down and see your daily hours and your labor budget. Now keep in mind, all this data is available straight from Hubble. So keep in mind that the data actually starts in Blue Force, minus, except the labor budget. Obviously, the labor budget begins in J.D. Edwards. But in both cases, all this information is made available for you in Hubble. And Hubble is nothing more than a tool to allow you to see all the data in one nice area, shows it visually so you can quickly identify where your issues are. And if you want more data or more detail, obviously you can drill down into that level of granularity. So the data sources I mentioned, like I said, the data sources involved are obviously your ePay, ePay's brute force program, or obviously the J.D. Edwards system. So keep in mind that this workspace, as you go through, and we'll see it here momentarily, provides a real-time labor forecast. And I mentioned it's for all hourly workers only, and it's for the current calendar month. Now, keeping that in mind, the workspace alone brings in actuals from your ePay timesheet and manual timesheet. And for those that aren't familiar with what timesheet versus a manual timesheet is, the timesheet view is where all the time goes on a current pay period. So after an employee punches in and out on the current pay period, the timesheet is basically where everything is compiled and actually prepares to get pay that employee, for lack of a better description. That's kind of where that timesheet is. The manual timesheet is where we would go. Anybody in the field operations that are Blue Force users could go into the manual timesheet and create a maybe a back pay situation where we forgot to pay the employee 2 weeks ago. You can go in there and enter that information via the manual timesheet. Now we're going to talk about averages here in a little bit, and the averages are also calculated from prior timesheets and manual timesheets that are collected in the system. And then the budget labor will always come from the JDE operating budgets. And to sum up all this and kind of how this all kind of works is that whenever you go into the monthly labor forecast, and let's say today is the 7th of September, we could actually go through here and actually see that the whole screen there on the days of the month have the word average and have the word actuals in it. Well, the way this works is that the system is always going to have what amounts to a 2-day lag in providing actuals to you. So that means is currently right now we're on the 7th of September. If I went into my monthly labor forecast, I would see actual numbers from the 1st of the month through 2 days ago, which is the 5th, and the 6th and 7th are going to be averages, with the remaining of the month also being based on averages. And the way this works is the forecast, obviously you have monthly totals that are provided to you on these views, and you'll see these a little bit, but the monthly totals for a forecast are going to be based on the sum of your actuals plus your average. Your budget is going to be your operating budget, whatever was entered into J.D. Edwards. And then your variance is going to be the budget minus the forecast. So kind of big picture, you would see that if you went into the actual monthly labor forecast on the first day of the month, keep in mind, if I had gone in on September 1 and to view this, my August information is no longer relevant because August is done with. I got to focus now on the new month. I can't do anything. I can't go and fix August because I had my opportunity. So now on the first of the month, and this example shows May 1, the whole entire month is going to have averages when you first look at it. It won't be until May the 3rd in this particular example, or the 3rd day of the month, that you would actually start seeing actuals populated for you in the system. and so forth. That should go through the example all the way to the end of the month. So let's talk about actuals real quick in more detail. And the actuals are pulled from the ePay manual timesheet or regular timesheet. The workspace will show you average labor for the prior day to allow operations one full business day to ensure the labor through the 2 days is actually accurate. Now, for those that are on the phone call that are checking the ePay compliance dashboards also on a daily basis, keep in mind that we stress that all Blue Force users should be actually going there and checking their time for their employees on a daily basis. If you are one of those on this call that does not do that now, or if you have members on your team that are not doing it now, they need to get into the habit of checking their time on a daily basis. Now, to find out who's not doing that, there is a statistic on the ePay compliance dashboard that actually refers to correction lag. And correction lag is the time it takes to fix those open punches or missed punches. So operators need to ensure that the following issues are resolved in ePay by the end of the next business day, for the simple fact that open and partial punches are going to make this forecast be understated until the open or partial punch is resolved. So basically what that basically means is that somebody has gone in there looking at this report, looking at the monthly forecast and thinking, wow, we're up $1,000. Awesome. We're doing very good. But in reality, if you haven't fixed those open or partial punches, Blue Force is recording those punches as zeros or no time scenarios. So when those are corrected, your monthly labor forecast is immediate and will show otherwise. Manual time. Manual time must be eliminated wherever possible. So that basically means if you have sites out there that are not clocking in and out on a time clock, on the phone system, on the mobile app, or on the web punch option, one of those four methods, if we're not using one of those four methods, we need to get those employees on to doing so. Forecast is always going to be understated until manual time is entered. So keep that in mind. Manual time is actually a bad thing when it comes to the monthly labor forecast. We need to make sure we get accurate reporting when we're reviewing those the dashboard. Work orders. Work orders on contract jobs, they have to be assigned to any work that was done appropriately. So forecast is also going to be overstated for the contract job if the work order is not used. So obviously your budgets are going to be out of whack because we're coding our time as regular time. In reality, it should be coded to a work order. Now averages are actually, like I mentioned earlier, averages are based on a trailing 5-week average of hours and dollars worked by job and day. What this basically means is the averages are used in the workspace to forecast the job's labor spend through the remainder of the month. So we have a process that runs every Thursday morning, which will be later this evening or early tomorrow morning. And this program is going to go in and recalculate all the averages for all the jobs. So what it's going to do is going to go out there and look at each job, pull out the last 5 weeks of time. It's going to exclude any work coded to the work orders and determine the average for each day, Saturday through Friday, and populate that into the system. If any of those jobs have holidays, the system is going to take those into consideration as well. So if there's a holiday with no pay, then the hours and the amount are going to be set to 0 when you look at that as far as the averages for that particular day. If the holiday is a premium pay situation, then the amount is going to be increased accordingly. And if for only some of the employees are set to work those holidays in the labor budget, then the hours and dollars are going to be prorated accordingly as well. So this actually is a cool program. It's something like we've never had before in ISS, much less in the industry. And it's actually going to do a lot of the forecasting accurately for us now. Now the big figure here is the budget portion. The budgets are actually going to be pulled straight from J.D. Edwards' operating budget, and for those that are on the financial side or are familiar with that, that's the OB ledger. The JDE labor budget, including the labor accrual, represents a 21.75 day level budget. So in the JDE labor budget side, we use that kind of hard number, that 21.75 that we use for everything. Well, because of this workspace being based on actual days in a month, the labor budget from JDE is actually programmatically adjusted up or down based on the number of days in the actual current month. So that 21.75 is really not in play. It's now based on the actual days of the current month. So look at the table below. You'll see that July had 21 working days. August had 23. We added 2 days. And then September, we actually went down 1 day. So kind of this table, what it wants to illustrate that if you looked at July, and you see July, the 21.75 number, that hard number that we've been using, if we actually take that 21.75 and use it against the figures that are there, the budget amount is going to be $21,750. If the workspace used this budget figure, the job would actually appear to be under budget by $750, which looks like it's a very good thing. However, in reality, the monthly labor forecast budget amount for this job in July is $21,000 because we budget $1,000 a day for 21 days in July. So you're kind of looking at the different months there and what the actual amounts reflected on the monthly labor forecast column, the second column from the right. That actually will show you that the in July would have actually been, it would actually make it look like they were under budget by $750. But in August and September, it would actually have been over budget big time. So the figure there, we want to address to everyone that it's a little different from what you've been used to in the past. But now we're actually budgeting based on actual days in the month. Now, as you go through some of your data, you may or may not notice that some of the some of the times might be color coded. So what we have done is we have taken every rate type from ePay, and for those, as a quick refresher, those rate types determine the GL that's going to hit over in JDE, as well as the spend category in this monthly labor forecast. Now, the timesheet list view, which is basically your data of all your different your timesheet times, the punch-ins and punch-outs, it's going to show, it's set up right now for conditional formatting. So you're going to see different color codes or italicized or bolding. The way, what that basically means is when I look at my timesheet information in the monthly labor forecast, if I see anything with a white background, that white background is essentially telling you that that is time that an employee has worked. So if I just go ahead and highlight this little section here, anything above this or in this little square, pink square, is actually worked hours. It's going to show perfectly fine, like you would normally expect it to see. Anything in the orange section is a worked scenario, for example, back pay, retro pay, etc. But it is deemed retro or worked, back pay. That's kind of the purpose of that one. So when we quickly look at the timesheets, you can see where we've actually gone back and coded time back as back pay. If you see any time in red, the red is going to be referring to any non-work scenarios. So anytime an employee gets paid but did not work it, so like holiday pay, maybe you had a birthday, bereavement, jury duty, something like that, that would be considered non-work and would show up in red. If they actually take personal time, you would see that time listed in blue. And I'll show you some good examples of this in a little bit, but it'll be sick leave, vacation, and so forth. And then lastly, you have the green section. The green section there refers to other time. So the other time is any time, any entries that were entered into Blue Force that refer to, parking, mileage, meal reimbursements, or uniform reimbursements. Now, some of you on this call do not ever use any of those down there, so that's perfectly fine. But for those that are on this call that do use it, you will see those in green. And then lastly, you have bolded areas and italicized areas. If you ever see those, that means that bolds are identifying overtime, and italics are identifying any use of work orders. So we'll go through this in a little bit more detail, a little bit on the live demo, so you can actually see some examples how they're actually pan out for you. So bottom line, after kind of going through all this, and I mentioned it a couple times, why is the labor analysis separated by billing types? Well, first and foremost, we want to keep the fixed fee and the square foot separate from any of the other types of billing. And we do this because if you have any project that has a mix of billing types, they're actually going to split those based on the job's billing type. Now, so you can have multiple different types of jobs all under one project, but just know that they're going to be split out into separate buckets per se. And the reason we separate this is because when we roll up the labor variance figures, including all billing types, any labor budget shortfall on the fixed fee square footage jobs would be masked by any labor gains on the cost plus job side. So for example, if this was a project of two different jobs, and in your project you had one job that was cost plus, where you had actual labor of $14,000 and a budget labor of $15,000, the difference there is $1,000. So there it looks like we're doing, we're doing okay. Our budget, we're under budget by $1,000. However, if in that same project you had a fixed fee job that had $5,000 actual, but you only budgeted for $4,000, we look like we were under $1,000, but from a project level, we were break even. Now, if you dig into this, you'll see that what would otherwise falsely appear to be a zero variance is actually a $1,000 overrun in fixed fee expense with a $50 shortfall in cost plus revenue, because the example here, the cost plus was a 5%. So, and actually, the in picture doesn't look as bright as it would otherwise. So that's the main reason we like to separate this when we actually go through the monthly labor forecast. And production rates. The production rates, this screen talks about the different calculations, but we're going to go through and show you the production rate screen here a little bit, so you can kind of understand this a little bit better. So when we do production rates, we're only focused on janitorial jobs, and those janitorial jobs, the contract jobs are, once again, LOB 11, which is janitorial jobs only. They're active jobs only. And we put a limitation in here that excludes your day porter janitorial jobs. Now, to actually do some calculations and figures, and you'll see this in a little bit, we made sure that we only picked up rate codes of regular overtime and holiday works. And once again, those specific tasks on the right-hand side are the only tasks that we're looking at. We're not looking at day porter or any other day jobs. So I'll show you this view here in more detail momentarily, so you can actually kind of see the production rates in play and kind of the information you're going to get out of it. So that's the end of the monthly labor forecast guide. And as I mentioned, you have all this data here available for you that you can at any point come back, open up this document by clicking on the monthly labor forecast guide in the middle of the the Hubble window, right there on the monthly labor forecast. So let's get started. Let's go back in. I think we went through the overviews. Let's go in and actually take you through a test drive of the system. And one of the things, real quick, and I'll just show you here, this is the table of contents. You can at any point go through any of the different pages. As I mentioned earlier in our discussion, you can actually go through any one of these pages, let the system refresh, and provide you the information for that particular selection you've made. We're going to start with the overview page, which is page 1. And the overview page, you'll see here you have a couple of cylinders. You have a couple of little icons that look like money bags. You have a big old clock. Each is going to provide you a different piece of data. So what I want to do is we're going to start with a yellow money bags, and that panel is labeled Projects Over Budget. So let me preface this section as knowing that everyone on this phone call, when you log into this monthly labor forecast, you're only going to have access to your immediate jobs, districts, company, etc. Whereas I have access to everyone, I can see a lot of other data. So when I go in here, all the numbers are going to be reflected from a company perspective. So the first one we're going to go through is this yellow money bags down the bottom row. And it's called Projects Over Budget. You'll see that the first money bag shows 257. The bottom money bag shows a negative 388,167. Well, that's telling me is right now that I have 257 jobs that are, 257 projects that are over budget, and right now that variance for those jobs is $388,000. Now, the way this works is that panel shows me the initial information. It tells me I have 257 jobs, but you probably don't have enough information to be able to fix this. So what we want to do now is double click on this panel, and when we double click on the panel, it will now provide you the information behind the 257 projects and the $388,000 variance. And when it opens up, notice the pictures can be humongous there. That is not a problem at all. Those pictures are just the initial graphic you saw on the initial overview page. If in the middle of the page here, you'll see that you have a dividing line, sort of, a kind of a breakout between the two sections. If I go there and just simply put my arrow there, you'll notice that my mouse pointer changes to a double-sided black arrow, to which now I can hold down my left click and actually drag up if I choose to get more room to view my list view down at the bottom. Now my list view here will show you every project. It'll show you how many jobs are in that project, and then it'll show you what the current variance is. Now once again, this graphic is called projects over budget. Now if you actually go here and go back, let me go back a page real quick. If I go back to this particular graphic, I see the yellow money bags, or any of the graphics for that matter, and at the bottom right-hand corner of that that panel, I see a exclamation point with a little within a little triangle, and all the numbers in that particular panel are 0 or blank. That's letting you know that you actually are doing perfect. You have nothing that meets that criteria for that panel. So if you ever see that little exclamation point, don't fret. I mean, many of you out there have no projects over budget. So when you go out there, your section will show blank, and it'll show a little exclamation point with a triangle around it at the very bottom of that panel. So I'm going to bring up this data, and you'll see the little refresh indicator going down the bottom right again, because I went back. It's trying to pull in all the new data for us. Not a problem. So we're going to go from here is I can actually go in. The first job on the list is called BAE Systems, and I'll just use them as an example. But that is the actual project number and name. It shows you that I have 15 jobs in it, and it shows me that I have a variance of 72,577. Not a good thing and not a good discussion to have with your managing director either. So the way this works is that I can actually go in here and I can do a right click, because once again, if I'm looking at this 15 jobs and $72,000 variance, is it one job that's in variance that has no budget, or is it all the jobs that are no budget? You know, I want to know some detail. So if I do anywhere on that particular line, if I do a right click, in this case this is a right click on the name of the project, I have options that come up. The list menu that pops up gives me the opportunity now to go in there and pick the summary labor by job view. Shows me a timesheet view. Gives me the opportunity for a labor budget view, or drill down into a manual timesheet view. Now in any case there, I can pick the one that I need. And for this particular example, I want to go look at my labor by job, because I know I have 15 jobs. I want to see what's going on with these jobs. So when I select that job, the system's going to now drill down one level into the labor by job for my job, BAE Systems. And you'll see the little refresh indicator going down at the bottom right-hand corner. Once it's pulling in all the data, you'll see all of your 15 jobs listed here for this particular example. And I can go through and see, it's going to show me that I have how many hours have remained on this job, how many dollars have remained on this job, and it's based on the current calendar month. So for the month of September, I have 819 jobs on the Sterling Heights job. If I keep going over, I'll see my variances. I'll see my actuals and my actual total of the month compared to my budget total amount, my actual work, etc., all the way around to all the way to the right. But if I see the budget column, you notice that this particular job has a few that are in red. Those red sections are letting me know that the budget is not available or has not been entered for these particular jobs. So in this particular case is a good example where I want to actually go in there and enter a budget for these jobs. Now what I will want to do here is the best way to do this is go down to the next level, because right now this view shows me all of my jobs and kind of how I'm doing from a big picture. If I go in here and right-click on one of the jobs that needed a budget, I can now drill down into my labor budget and focus on that one particular job. So if I had no labor budget, I could go to one that had no labor budget, or I can go to one now that does. But in either case, you would see it reflected on this particular screen. So look in here. This is BAE Systems Endicott. This particular job has a couple different positions, and if I scroll over here, you'll see that this job has several different positions budgeted for it. It has a $9 custodian position, $935 custodian position, $1085, etc. You see the different breakouts, the different tasks. About two or three columns back, you'll see that you have an employee column that tells you how many employees are budgeted for that job, and how many have been asked to be requested, I guess you say, for that particular job. And the way this works is, if you notice that right now that I'm working down here in the bottom half of the screen, there's a light blue dot around, a dotted line around the entire window of data, or that entire list view. Well, that particular dotted area is letting you know that you've selected that data, and then that data is what we're going to do next is going to be affected. So the next part of this is, we have a labor budget here, and this is kind of what we're asking all of our users to do. Whenever you have a budget change, the best thing to do for us here is to actually go in and hit the three arrows in the top right-hand corner of the screen and click Save Excel. Save Excel will then split this particular piece of information over into Excel format, to which you can actually come in and download into Excel. So now I've opened up an Excel. Let me bring it over to my other screen. This is my full budget that I just got from the actual labor budget view. Now from this particular view, I can now say, I have a couple of jobs here. This job, for example, the $9 rate was actually going to be, from a budget standpoint, I need to change that because that employee is supposed to be paid $925. So what I would actually do is just select that entire line. I click on the number 2 for the row 2, select that whole entire row, and then I just would come up in here and copy, and I come to the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet and paste it. Now the way this works is, if you go in a separate section and go down here, just make a note and say you're going to increase wage. Make some type of note for yourself. What I would do is just go over here into that wage section and make the change to $925. And I would actually also highlight it because we want to draw attention to it. What we have done here, and you can actually say increase wage here, we have not touched the original budget. We left the original alone at the very top of the screen. What we have done is basically copy and pasted a new line down at the bottom, so that way we can actually submit this to your general manager, who in turn will submit it to the operational support group. We go through and confirm, essentially, that that is the change that's been made, and we're going to highlight it to address attention to it. So that way, whenever the operational support group gets this, there is no question that is the change that you actually wanted to do. Now, also, let's say maybe this other position here, 1015. These employees are getting paid 1015, but we should actually have 3 employees working that wage. Same thing as before. I can come down, copy and paste the new line, make a little note. I can say increase number of employees. And I can't spell today. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to go over to the employee line, which is this one. It shows 1 right now. I'm going to highlight that as well. And I'm going to change this to 3 because I made the change. So bottom line, we're keeping our originals still listed there, but basically noting the changes that are going to be requests are made. And once we've done that, we have the ability now obviously to go to the top of the screen and go File, Save As, or Save. You have the option to save the document for your records. But one thing a lot of you are not familiar with is you don't have to do this part. You can actually go in and come down to an option called Share. When you click on Share, you have the ability now to go in here into Email and tell the system to generate an email where it's going to send spreadsheet as an attachment. What the system will do for us is it will create an email message with that data that you just did right back in the view behind. It'll actually attach it for you. Only thing we're asking you to do is go in here and say what job number you're dealing with, and just make a note that it's jobs, labor changes, or budget changes. And that's really all you have to do. And once you're done there, you address it to whomever your general manager is. And I'm kind of talking to the DMs here and VP of Ops. Once you address your general manager, you send it to them. They can get this email. They can look at it, say approve, and then from there simply just forward it to the operational support group, to which within a 24-hour period they'll make the change. We'll get in a system and have it have your monthly forecast updated correctly. So that is just a quick overview of how to go in there and send this data and actually put this into Excel format. Now, one thing also I'll point out is a good point to stop and mention this. At the middle of the screen here, you'll see the breadcrumbs I was talking about earlier. So what this basically tells you is this is the first page we were on. This is the second page we went to. And we are currently on this third page right here, which is the labor budget settings by job. So to that, if I want to go back one page, all I have to do is come over here, click on the labor by job breadcrumb, take me back to the prior page. Now I can go to another job, right click on it, and maybe go into that labor budget there and check out that labor budget. Or I can just go back one and then go back another one back to the full project list I had earlier. Maybe now I want to right click on a different project. Do the same thing, go into the summary labor job for a different project. This is HSBC, which is a bigger job. And that is kind of where it actually will show you all the jobs of that other project. And this one's going to take a little longer. I probably picked the wrong one. Yeah, there it is. This one has like 182, 152 jobs. That's why it took a little longer. But you can go through here and see which ones are under the variance. And you can scroll over as well and see which ones are have no budget. And I think all of them have budgets here. Yep, all of them are looking good. So right here you'll see all the different categories or columns that have data for you. All right. So that's kind of the breadcrumb piece I want to show you, just so you have the ability to go through back and forth as needed to get your information. All right. So one of the things we can actually do is once we actually go down in different jobs, and I'll stick with BAE Systems again. When you go into the labor by job, you can actually see, like I mentioned earlier, you see every job listed for you. But one thing you can actually do is once you get to the labor view of a job at the job level, you can right-click on the actual job and actually go in to see the actual daily hours that have been worked. So like for this particular first line, Sterling Heights, if I right-click on that job, I can actually go in here and choose to see the daily hours. What the daily hours does for me, you'll see as the refresh indicator kicks off, this is going to give me the actual forecast, daily forecast for you based on the actual day you're on. So right now, like I mentioned earlier, if I look at this from the standpoint of the current day, which is the 7th, and then suppose the day before the 6th are going to be average numbers all the way out to the end of the month. Anything between the 1st and the 5th, in this case, because today is the 7th, are going to show actuals. So what this is going to show me is that Sterling Heights had actually 56 hours on the 1st and the 2nd. We didn't do any work there the 3rd, 4th, or 5th based on the data that has been collected thus far in Blue Force. But the rest of the month, you'll see, is actually projected out for us accurately. This is an example of the actual forecast hours by day, by job. I can go back on my breadcrumbs one level, pick a different job, go into daily hours as well, and you can actually see that the actuals and the averages that have been calculated for that particular job. And once again, just give it a few seconds, there you go. So here, we got a problem. This one just has no budget, so it's going to be in red there for you as well. But you see that on the first and the second, and the third, you had actual hours of 111, 103, and 3. The 6th and 7th are average numbers, so you'll see their average right now today should be 111, 109, followed by yesterday was on 111. And then the rest of the month is going to be averaged out as well. So once again, this is a good view of seeing your actual forecast by job. And all I did, once again, is I went down to the job level, right-click, and selected daily hours. I can actually do it from a the daily hours is down to the job level, so if I go through here, you'll see it on the project screen. I don't have that daily hours option. So if I actually go into the summary labor by job, and then right-click on the jobs and pick daily hours, I can get that forecast, the daily forecast. So that's just kind of one of the views I want to show you real quick so you can kind of see what you're against. If I right-click on any of the jobs that I picked, so if I went back to, yeah, let's go, we can go back to BAE Systems here. But one of the things I can do here is from the job level or even from the project level, I could have actually right-click on the job and actually pick timesheet. Now by doing that, the system is going to return the timesheet for that job. So at that point, I can actually go through and actually see the actual different time entries that were made. And you'll notice here you have the ability to see a timesheet as a whole or a timesheet with no totals. So that's the one difference. If you want to see totals by day, it'll give you all the time and total up by day. Or if you maybe want to export this out and share with others, that total line disappears with the one that says no totals. So for this one, I'm going to show you the timesheet for Sterling Heights. And I can go through here and notice that I have some good coloring. And what this basically is telling me that on 9/1, and let me just circle a couple things here. 9/1 here, you have all this time for 9/1. You have all this time for 9/2. Then the employee or no employees worked until 9/6 again at this job. But in blue forces, what's been calculated on the timesheet. So anytime you see that white line of time in the timesheet, keep in mind that means that the hours are worked hours that were entered in the system. In this example, you see some blue lines. If I recall and go back to my monthly labor forecast guide, the blue lines are referring to PTO scenarios. So anytime an employee has PTO entered into blue force, the timesheet is going to show and reflect for you that are reviewing this, showing you that this is actually PTO time. So kind of looking at this, you see on 9/1, this job had 56 total hours for $610. Anytime you see bolded areas, such as this one I'm trying to highlight, but now you'll see there's a bolded line on 9/2. That bolded line stats means that employee is working overtime. What that means is that employee worked overtime on this job. Doesn't mean that this entire day was overtime, but this job did get a little hit on the overtime from his work day. So that's what that bolded line is too. Is referencing as well. So that's kind of the different views that are available from this first one, projects over budget. But you can actually go through and kind of, like I said, right-click at any point. If you want to go down into a further view, you can. For example, if I wanted to go in here and see Julian Moran's, actually, Ann Robertson's employee timesheet to see all her time, I could go here and see all her time. So you have a lot of ability here using the the monthly labor forecast to see all the employee time. The next section I want to go just a tad over is the projects without budgets. And the projects without budgets is the red money bag, and that's going to give you a listing of all the projects that do not have budgets. So in this case, you have 19 projects that have a forecast amount of $200,262. So this basically means is not only are they over budget from a little while ago, but this set of jobs that we're looking at now are going to be without a budget. So we saw a few a little while ago that had no budgets. This view is going to show you in focus just on that criteria. So I double click on there and go in there and open up that view. Here you'll see a listing of all the different projects that have no budget. So if I scroll through here, you'll see all some different projects. You, on this phone call, a few of you may not ever have any of these available to you because you may have that area, like I said, blanked out. That panel will be blank with a little exclamation point with a triangle down the bottom right of it. Just letting you know that you're perfect in that category. There's nothing to worry about. But all of these, you'll see also what company they belong to, so you'll know those are the companies that need to address these. But bottom line, this is your full listing of jobs, projects that have no budget. So from that, I can actually right-click and actually drill down and actually go in and see any of the different levels of information. So if I want to go through and look at my job level, so break this projects into jobs, I can now go in there and it'll pull up all my jobs that have the actual breakout for that particular project. Now this one only had one job in that project, but if I scroll over, you can go through and actually see the data right now. There's actually some time actually going to it and some actual work actually being made to it. So one of the things you'll notice also, and there's a column for inactive date. That inactive date column is basically letting you know that if you ever lose a job, you want to make sure that the operations support group is aware of that and that you let them know when the last work date was so that we can update that particular inactive date. Or if you know in the future there is a job that's already going to be lost, you can always provide that. Key thing here is this report or this dashboard is based the current month. So if you have any activity for the current month, let's say a job is inactive as of September the 15th, well, you did have activity for that job on the first 15 days of the month, so it's going to stay a part of this until the October dates begin, at which point it'll roll off of that particular dashboard. So that's really the projects without budgets. Right to the left of that, we have a green clock, and that green clock is our overtime percent. Overtime percent basically says right now it shows a 3.6. So since I have full company access, that basically says as a company, we are running 3.6% overtime as of right now, September the 7th. And we have a long way to go at the end of the month. When you log in here, hopefully your percent will be a lot lower, but that is basically based on your area responsibility. When I double click on that panel, whoa, that big old clock appears the forefront of everything. There we go. You can actually see the actual overtime percentages that are available to you. Now, my view shows all the companies, but keep in mind it's only going to show you on your views what you have access to seeing. So if I only have access to seeing Pittsburgh, for example, then I want to see Pittsburgh on the list. But for this one, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not picking on Memphis, just there at the top of the list. If I go up here, do I right-click on Memphis, I can actually then go and see the breakouts maybe by district, by project, by job. Whereas right now, the general view is by company now. So by company is telling me that as a company, Memphis has accumulated 6,786 hours thus far for the month of September, of which 67 hours are overtime, which basically equates to 1%. So if I right-click on that, I can then go and see how that overtime really means by district. It'll then bring up the different districts that are available in Memphis. In this case, it's 2 districts. So in reality, you'll see that District 10101 had the most overtime at 1.1%, where the District 102 there had 0.9%. And then from there, I can have the ability to right-click on either one of these districts and go into a job level if I wanted to. If I didn't want to deal with just the job, I could actually go and see the timesheets and see all the entries and see who all made the overtime naughty list. So I go through there and see that as well. So I have some different options for me. And I'm just looking and see question-wise if there's any questions here. Give me 1 second. So this is one question I think I missed, and I apologize. Basically, it reads is if the contract is a 7-day work week, basically we're working 7 days a week, should I get the operational support group to get those corrected because we actually work the weekend? That's a big 10-4. That's a yes. You definitely want to do that because if we don't, the system will show your averages for your particular jobs as being 0 on their weekend, and you're actually going to come out over budget at the end of the game, at the end of the month. So yeah, definitely. If it's a 7-day work week, we want to make sure that it's adjusted accordingly. So good question. Sorry that I forgot to answer a little while ago. All right, so the overtime percentage, like I said, bottom line is going to show you all of your different overtimes for your jobs, for your company, your district's jobs, etc. And then the first, and I should have mentioned first, the red money bags that we went through a little while ago, you see those 2 sets of them. The top half of this window is going to be geared towards the projects and your variances as relates to the events, cost plus, the progress jobs, those types of billings. Most of the time, and for the most part of us, the ones that we need to really worry about is the bottom half. These are the ones that are based on the fixed fee, square footage, those scenarios that can't always quite control. So, or actually can't control. We can't probably deviate too much off the beaten path there. So we have to kind of keep close tabs on those. But those are the bottom half of are your fixed fee, square footage, etc. Type jobs. The last one I want to bring up on the overview screen here is the first column. First column is the variance, and the variance ones they're in the gray will show you that those are the variances as it sits for those different types of jobs. So looking at the bottom left-hand corner, that 394,000 job, $394,000 number is telling me right now that as a company, if everything continues on pace and we're basically on budget the rest of the month, we are set as a company to make almost $400,000 ahead of budget. So that's a very good number to look at. But when you wanted more detail with that, and once again, when you log in, you'll see your own area of responsibility, your area of access. If I wanted to now go in here and double click on that variance, give it a second, it's popping there. You see the refreshed indicator going down the bottom right. Once again, this is by company, so I can go in there and see Memphis again had 128 jobs. How many hours remaining as a group, how many dollars remaining as a group, etc. But I can always right-click on that company and go into the different districts, see the district breakdown. And then once again, once I get the district breakdown, I can actually right-click on that, or even from the first screen I could have done this, but I can go down to the job breakout. So I can see how each individual job is doing. Are we above? Are we ahead of the budget or behind budget? What's going on? So I can go to right-click here, go into the jobs. And it's pulling up all the jobs, so just bear with it. Typically, just a side note, the speed issue here, there really is no speed issue as long as your network connection is doing well. If you're having a problem with the network connection, you might be a little slow when you pull up your information here if you have a lot of data. But if you look at PenMark here, you'll see PenMark has 803 hours remaining. It gives you all the breakout essentially by job. And you can kind of see which ones are ahead of the curve, like 15% here, whereas a handful down here are going to be right now behind the curve. So you have a 12.9%, basically under 2%, etc. there. But this view actually will go through and actually show you your intended actuals versus budgets for every single category needed. If you had any PTO or non-work scenarios being coded out to your employees, you would see them in these two columns here in the middle of the screen. Or if you had any other account amounts, such as those uniforms, the cell phone reimbursements, meal reimbursements, whatever it may be, those particular scenarios, those will appear on that particular column as well. And once again, this is nothing more than the variance broken down into specific districts and or jobs. That's really your overview screen, and I will guarantee that the majority of you on this phone call are going to spend your time looking at the 4 panels at the bottom of this page. This is page 1, and once again, it's labeled Overview. Now, you have 6 pages. I'm not going to go through all 6 pages, but I will tell you that all of your data, if you want it broken up by category, you can find those on page 2 and 3 of this particular workspace or dashboard. Page 4 will show you all your work order scenarios. So anytime you've coded a work order, you can go through there and reference that on that particular page and actually drill down into the timesheet to see your work order time as well as needed. Now, page 5 is a cool one because page 5 will show you the production rates. And once again, just to get here, I clicked on the little table of contents icon next to the word Overview, came down to, from page 1 there, down to the table of contents to page 5. And you can now go through and see all of your different jobs that are janitorial jobs. And here you can actually see, and I'm just kind of looking and glancing through here, but you can actually see that Commerce Square. It'll tell you that that job had a production rate of 1,232. Calculated hours were actually 193 hours. He worked 5 days. These are the square footages of the building. And right now it shows no vacancy in those buildings. So if vacancy is updated, you would actually reflect on this particular report. And I know there's some that have vacancy. There's one right here, example. This one over in Houston on 100,000 Main Street has a vacant office of 5,200 square feet. Bottom line, as I go through here, you do have the ability to see the different billing types. Is that job a fixed billing type, or is it a square footage job? Is it, what exactly is going on? What is the pricing involved behind it? What is the occupancy pricing? What is the vacancy credit that would be due to that customer should we have a vacancy? So once again, this is just a full production rate. It shows you all the information as relates to your janitorial contract jobs. And the last page I want to show you today is page 6, and that's the monthly usage page. Now this is the one that I address to everyone, and this is the one that a lot of you are very familiar with. This report will list every user. Let me scroll down just a tad. Every user that has logged into the Hubble system, and every time they've logged in, it will actually show you the times, how many times a month they've logged in and how many times per day they have actually logged in. So you can go to the top of the screen there, you'll see your 1 through 31 at the top, or 1 through 30 in this case, at the top of the screen. And I actually go through there and see by day how many times the user actually has logged in. So I can see their name on the left-hand side of the column, go through there and go there. So I'm still updating here, but I can go in there and pick my stuff off the list and go through there and see how many times I've actually logged in into the system. And it's still refreshing. I see the refresh indicator going. Perfect. So now here, I'll pick on myself here. On me, and I'm going to highlight there. You'll see that it shows me that I logged in 14 times this month. And you can be like, that's very impressive, 14 times this month. However, if you notice there, I've only logged in yesterday and today this month. 8 times yesterday and 6 times already today. So from a monthly usage standpoint, it shows you that you've actually gone in and logged in a couple times. However, by day is the best indicator to see if you or your team or other members of your team are actually using the system as we ask. So kind of in a perfect world for everyone here, and kind of from our process and our recommended procedures here, is that everyone goes in here on a daily basis to go in there and check your monthly forecast and check your ePay compliance. Now, to that point, once you go in there and pull up your name, if you want to verify what you've actually accessed, down at the bottom of the screen, it'll show you detail of what you opened and when you opened it. So that way we have this, and this is not really a Big Brother is watching kind of list. This is actually just a list to let you know that you may be a managing director and you want to know that your team is actually accessing the information on a recurring basis. You can actually go to this report and say, you know what, you haven't seen you logged in for the last 15 days, 2 weeks, what's going on? And then go from there. But that is just more of a list to see all the monthly usage. Now, to this, you will see everybody straight across the board regardless of access. We did not limit this. We purposely left everyone's name on the list. So you'll be seeing extra names on here, but it's in alphabetical order by first name. And I know Dennis is Dennis. Hopefully, I don't know if you're on the call or not, but Dennis Dean. His real name is Elwin. So if you don't know that, you may not see him on the list looking at the D's when it's really in the E. But it's actually in alphabetical order by the user ID. So that's why it's out of order on the left-hand column by username, but the user ID is where it's actually sorting by. And once again, this is monthly use. It's just a listing of users and when you've logged in. So kind of in a nutshell, that is the monthly labor forecast, kind of going through where we started today, the instruction section. Keep in mind that you do have those two links at the bottom, the Hubble navigation guide, which allows you to see, refresh yourself on the basics of navigation in Hubble, followed by the monthly labor forecast kind of orientation. And then we went through all the different screens. So the first page overview is the one you'll probably be on the most. And then, like I mentioned, the table of contents allows you now to go in and access the other pages as needed. So as I said, that is, in a nutshell, the monthly labor forecast. So with that, I'm going to actually stop my talking at this particular time. I'm going to ask and see if there's any other questions or any other concerns that someone would like to ask. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay on just for a couple minutes to see if there's any other questions that do come up. So the rest of you, if there are any other questions, I'll say thank you for joining us on our monthly labor forecast webinar. Just make it a point to go out there on a daily basis to check your jobs, make sure you're not over budget, or more importantly, make sure you have a budget there. And obviously, you can maintain your overtime and your variances as needed as well. So with that, I would say thank you for joining me today. I'll catch you guys on a future webinar. And those that may have questions that are a little shy, you want to ask now, you're more than welcome. I'll stay on for about 3-4 minutes and monitor those. So to all, thank you again, and we'll catch you again real soon.